Well, first, I appreciate you guys being here. This thing's coming to an end. But no, I appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate all you guys do. Obviously, not the result we wanted last week. Didn't play well at all. A lot to get cleaned up, a lot to learn from. To get ready for an unbelievable challenge this week down in Mobile, obviously with the regionality, closeness of these two schools, a lot of the fan bases probably share family members and relatives and probably work similar places in between the two. So obviously a really good football team. Coach Applewhite's done a really good job, he and his staff. Worked with him at the University of Alabama. I know he's an unbelievable offensive mind and has been a successful head coach in multiple places. So we got our hands full down in Mobile this weekend.
Got a chance to go back and look at the game again, slow some things down and stuff. Just it looked like maybe in terms of Sun Belt games, they schemed you guys up as good as anybody has. You worry about maybe some of that showing back up later? Or?
When you go back and you look at it, not necessarily schemed up. They made some plays. Their O-line was big, so they kind of moved some of our guys a little bit more than we've been moved. When you really go back and look at it, the game was kind of similar to how we've played. We just didn't have the responses that we've had that have kind of kept it from getting the way it got. You think about it, on the first drive, they go down, they get 3 points. Well, that's been our defense for past 8 weeks. They drive down and either we make a great play in the red zone, begin the season at App State, or they get 7, we kind of regroup, get back to the sideline, offense comes out, gets 7. Okay, well now the game's a little bit different flow. We didn't do that. We weren't able offensively to kind of answer when we needed to, which again, when you have our type of team, we drive down, get their 3, we 3 and out or come off the field quick. Well, now defense is right back out there. They kind of drive down again, ended up getting a score. We still didn't get a response. So now all of a sudden we're in a kind of a situation where we're getting a little bit antsy, where we got to make a play or we got to make a stop. We turned the ball over in the red zone. We're probably 3 points, probably make it 3-3. We went back and looked. No disrespect, I thought Texas State played an unbelievable game. I thought they did a great job coaching. We probably should have went into halftime 10-7, maybe, or 10-3 at least. When you don't do that, it changes everything coming out of the half. Our defense did what they've done all year. We came out of halftime, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. We didn't get that response on offense. Typically, we come out on offense, we're able to get a score at some point in that 3 and out phase. So when you looked at it, no excuses made. I thought Texas State did some really good things. We did some things that we typically haven't done. We gave up some super explosives. We haven't done that all year. We've given up explosive plays. We haven't given up very many that went for 70 for a touchdown. So you kind of start adding the things that we hadn't done all year or not able to get the response we got all year on top of a really good team. And I thought they played really well. Go back and look at the games that they had played before in our kind of self-scout. They didn't turn it over. They didn't drop a bunch of passes. And they didn't, from a O-line up front, they didn't cut guys loose. So when they play well and then we don't get the response we get, changes the outcome a little bit.
Have they played as much 12 prior?
Yeah, really what they did, they played, everything they did it at a different percentage. And, I don't know if Coach Kenny decided that's what they wanted to do, but when you don't score, they don't have to get out of it. So if we're not scoring, and I'm not putting on one side or the other, if we score and we kind of keep it a 7-10, 14-7, 14-14, they probably get out of it a little bit. With what they were able to do, they were having success with it. Defensively, they did some really good things. So they didn't have to get out of it. They kind of were able to stay in it. Well, now you add that on to the defense being on the field. It was almost 60 plays. It was 40 some odd plays in the first half. So now you're talking about the wear and tear. So I thought it was a really good job by them. And we talked to the team Sunday. This is what happens when you don't execute. When you don't get off the field on third down, when you don't stay on the field on third down on offense, when you don't score, when you turn the ball over in the red zone, it's almost worth 2 scores. When you do that, you allow another team to kind of dictate the momentum of the game. And they were able to stay in it. You know, same plays they were running on film, they just didn't run them as much. So somebody asked me in the post game, did they surprise us with anything? They were probably 60-40 pass to run on film. It was probably flipped on Saturday. Not like they didn't come out in triple option and start running Navy and Army offense and defense, and we're like, what are they doing? It was just, well, man, we got to get them out of 12 by putting some points on the board. Well, next thing you know, it's 28-0. Well, if this 12 thing is working, we probably should stick with it. The worst thing they would want to do is start throwing it around. All of a sudden now we get a turnover momentum swing. So really good job by them. I thought it was a good learning lesson for us. You know, we had lived and kind of been, I won't say lucky, but there's always been a point in the game where we get some type of spark. I thought we almost had it on the incomplete pass fumble that, you know, Mike ended up picking up and running back. If that's a fumble, that momentum may swing. Now, defensively, they still held them to 3, but that's been kind of the plays that we've been getting all season at some point to kind of flip the momentum. And we just didn't get that play on either side of the ball on Saturday.
You just mentioned talking to the team. Now it's been a couple of days. What kind of response do you think you'll see, and how do you think Saturday kind of taught them, you know, a lesson learned?
Yeah, I talked to them. You know, I think we're really good as a program at responding. You know, teaching young men that's a big characteristic to have in life. How you respond to adversity, how you respond when things don't go your way. And I think we're really good at that. You think back to the last time we lost a game, we responded really well. You think back to the last time we didn't play well on offense or defense, we responded really well. I think those are great traits to have in life. The thing for us, we got to have a little bit more proactive urgency. You know, we got to have a little bit more, okay, let's not let this thing get into the halftime before we say, okay, hey, we're going to come out with a 3 and out. Let's not wait until the third quarter to decide we're going to get a drive together that ends up in points. We got to have a little bit more proactive urgency, you know. And that, to me, that's in life and in football. You can't wait until the day of the test to study for the test. And then when you fail the test, respond by passing the midterm. You don't want to live your life like that. So we just talked to them about how can we be more proactive, you know, and urgent in these next few weeks. You know, let's not wait until we get to a game and everyone kind of feels like, man, we got to bring it. No, well, let's bring it on Monday. Let's bring it on Tuesday. Let's learn from the things that we haven't done well throughout the year. You know, we've been talking about this penalty turnover, you know, on offense thing all year, and we've been getting away with it. You know, we had 6 penalties on offense against Arkansas State. We keep talking about it. And, false starts or snap infractions or holdings, and you look at the game, and those were the things that showed up and bit us. You know, we had some big plays, got called back for holding. We get in a situation, we get snap infraction. Now it's 1st and 15, and when you're not scoring at the clip we've been scoring at, those things really hurt you. So that's kind of what we talked about. They were hurt. They should be. We were hurt as coaches. I was hurt. I didn't obviously have enough answers for them on game day. I thought we had a good week of practice. We didn't, you know, respond well during the game, and that's on me. But it didn't break their swords, if that makes sense.
Coach, how's Braylon, and do you expect him to play on Saturday?
I feel better. Like I say, Monday for us is, as the season goes on, Monday becomes more of a kind of a, I won't say walkthrough, but it's a little slower pace, intensity-wise. He was able to do everything we did. Now, I mean, me, you, and my grandma could probably do what we do on Mondays around here, but today will be a huge day to see. And then what we've got to kind of make sure is the residual effect of the week. You know, it goes Monday, goes Tuesday, goes Wednesday. How do you feel on Thursday? But if you ask me today, I feel really good about what I know today. After practice tonight, we'll have a really good answer, because Tuesdays are real days. You know, it's almost like a game speed, game physicality. So we'll have a really good idea tonight after practice, which will allow us to redirect on Wednesday and Thursday if we don't feel great about it, if that makes sense.
You mentioned in your opening, you're almost to the end now. What do you think is the biggest thing you've learned from this group?
They care. They really do. They care about this university. They care about each other. They're not done. They don't by any means think that the season's over or, hey, this was a good run. They're different. they're like your kids, you know. Every team you have as a head coach, they're like your kids. You love them all different, right? They're all different. I think the more and more that we're in this college football new landscape, teams like these are very rare. When I say that, meaning a group of guys that can come together from all different ends of the spectrum. When I say all different ends of the spectrum, I'm talking about some guys that won a championship, some guys that haven't experienced winning at a large clip, some guys that were kind of in the middle. It's difficult to get them all gelled to follow a process that all of them don't know, you know, if it works or doesn't work. If we were just putting a process together and we took some guys from some places who were on good teams, let's just say that, they all would be pushing, you know, for, you know, a championship. When you take some guys that haven't won at a really high clip, we're kind of in uncharted waters, and not as a negative, but okay, well, how do we keep this thing going? How do we respond from a loss? How do we take care of our bodies in week 13? And then when you have the guys who have won, you're into that. Okay, we know what we have to do. We got to get everybody else to understand what it looks like. So I think it's different. They're a special group. I love them. I tell them all the time, I love them. I appreciate everything they've done for this university and us, unattached to a result. I know everyone was beyond disappointed in Saturday's result, and I was too. But I came in Sunday with just as much excitement about this week and this game and this challenge as any, because I had an opportunity to do some teaching, you know, and we had kind of got away 5 weeks in a row with, you guys asked me these questions, you know, what about running the ball? Well, we hadn't run the ball great, and we probably needed to, you know, without Braylon on Saturday, weren't able to do it. You know, hey, coach, what about, you know, the defense giving up this or that? Well, we won the game, but we probably needed a stop or two more in the first half. You know, so all of the things that obviously, you know, when you win, it's easy to point it out, and they kind of say, well, yeah, we see it. All right, what's next? Now it's kind of like, see this here in this game? Let's go back 3 games, same issue. All right, we got to get it fixed. So, but they're a special group.
Turn on the film with South Al, their team had ups and downs, it looked like a group with a lot of resolve. Kind of speak to what stands out to you at this point in the season with them.
Yeah, I think the scary part, appropriate fear, they're starting to play consistent football in the back half of the season. I don't know who does the schedule, but they should let me in on those meetings next year so we can take all the teams that start out really, really slow, schedule them early, and then all the teams that turn it on at the end, we should flip the schedule. But that's what started to happen. I think, again, it's where we are in college football. You know, Coach Applewhite's a great head coach. It takes time, you know, and it takes time to get, you know, players all on the same page. It takes time to really find out who's who. Luckily, we had a pretty good idea about, you know, a handful of guys on our side. But there are some guys playing at a really high clip for us that we didn't really find out who they were until game 4 or 5. And I think that's kind of what's happening at South Al. They're starting to find out who some guys are. They're starting to play a lot more consistent. They're starting to play a lot more with their own identity, you know, offensively. Big physical group up front, willing to run the ball. Does a really good job of taking care of the ball. The quarterback can run and throw. You know, again, we're in kind of that world again. So his dual threat ability puts you in some binds on defense of what you can and can't do as far as looks and coverage and how you fit certain runs. And then defensively, they've been able to come up with some big plays here of late. You know, got a huge interception down in the end zone last week, an unbelievable catch, Sports Center level catch. Defensive line wise, they're playing really stout up front. Their linebacker, Blaine, is doing a phenomenal job. I think he was a preseason defensive player of the year. He's playing like it. So again, they're starting to really gel. They're starting to really put it together.
you guys are put in a position where, you know, Landry had to throw the ball a lot last week. How do you feel like Landry and the offense kind of grow this week?
Yeah, I think, a little bit of that was kind of how the game was going. You can't really keep handing it off when you're down 30 points. Did we go into the game saying we wanted to throw it 44 times with Landry? No, that's what we wanted to do. I think, again, the flow of the game dictated a lot more throws than we wanted to do. I'm not saying that we didn't think he could throw it, but we were probably 10 or 15 over what we would have liked to have been. I thought he did some good things. I didn't think people played as good or as consistent around him. And then when you go back and look at the film, it's guys trying to do too much. Everyone's trying to do a little bit more because, Braylon's out, or trying to make one more extra play. And that's the competitor in them. And as coaches, we got to kind of try and find the balance. How do we just get them to do you, man? Just do your job. You don't have to try and make up and try and do so much more, that where you're pressing. And I think that's kind of what happened on offense. Everyone was kind of like, hey, all right, Braylon's not going, let's step up. And stepping up took too much effort, or too many, well, I did this because I thought this, and then I saw this. Just do your job, and that's kind of what happened. I think Liddy got put in a bad situation. He turned the ball over twice, which he can't do, regardless if you're playing, who's playing around you. But I thought for the most part, he gave us a chance to be successful. We didn't help him out on defense. Obviously, when you get that far behind, it changes some of the things you wanted to do. You fumble in the red zone, that changes a little bit. But I didn't think he played horrible, but I didn't think he played great to where it was like, hey, if we just keep letting Liddy throw it or do whatever, we're going to be okay. We've got to find that balance.
For Elijah, it was the second straight game with over 100 yards and a touchdown. How do you feel like you can just kind of keep helping a guy like Landry out, or just kind of keep helping this offense, break through?
Yeah, I think he's doing a really good job. Obviously, he's an older guy who gets it, right? He gets it. He understands what it takes to prepare. He understands what it takes to get ready for these type of games. I think, again, the offense is starting to reward everyone. You think back a couple weeks ago, Doc was the guy that obviously they didn't know he was out there because they just kept letting him run down the middle of the field. Well, they realize he's out there now. So now Metcalf is getting some throws. Micah's getting some throws. They realize that Carl can go up and make some plays on the perimeter, so that opens some things up inside. So I think Smooth is just a byproduct of the system, but what he is doing is he's taking advantage of those opportunities. He's doing a really good job of creating yak yards. He's probably the first guy that we've had inside that's been able to catch the ball and get some extra yards, not just running by some guys. And we're able to use him in multiple spots because he's really smart. We can use him, we call it the Y and the H. You can use him at either spot. We can put him outside, inside. We've put him in the backfield a couple times. So his ability to retain and embrace multiple roles has helped. And then when he gets the ball in his hand, he does a really good job.
Coach, earlier this morning, Braylon was nominated for the Ceasefire kind of the trophy, best player in Mississippi. Can you just talk about his impact in this program this year and just maybe how it's kind of helped you guys in the state?
Yeah, I think obviously that's an unbelievable honor to be nominated for. I'm biased. I think the guy should win it. You look what he's done for his team. You look what he's done for this community. Realistically, look what he's done for this state. That's no disrespect to any other candidates. He has really impacted this entire state, this entire region. And, if you get a chance to be around him, he's got the right, makeup. He makes really good decisions, model citizen, big-time leader. You just look Saturday. The team looks different when he's not out there. As a coach, I would love to say if I didn't show up to the game that they would look different. They would probably play better if I didn't show up. But just having that leader presence around, having a person that everybody feels like, hey, man, as long as we got Braylon, we're good. And that was missing Saturday. No disrespect to Liddy, but it's just one of those deals, man. When Patrick Mahomes gets behind there, it's a different feel, Obviously, you still have good players around him, and the team would play without him, but it's a different feel. And I think him being nominated for that award just kind of, puts an exclamation point on what he's been able to do, not only for this team and this university, but this whole state.
Anything else?
All right, thanks, guys. Look forward to seeing you guys down in Mobile Saturday afternoon. To the top.
Good.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank